Have you ever made an assumption about someone based purely on what they look like or what job they're doing, only to realize you were completely, embarrassingly wrong? Now imagine making that mistake in front of dozens of people while insulting someone in a language you assumed they couldn't understand, only to discover they speak it better than you do. That's exactly what happened to a wealthy real estate executive at a luxury hotel in New York City, and what followed became one of the most viral moments of human humility the internet has ever seen. This story isn't just about a satisfying comeback. It's about dignity, respect, and why you should never, ever judge a book by its cover. Stay with me because this gets incredibly good. In the summer of 2019, the Peninsula Hotel in Manhattan was hosting an international business conference. Executives from around the world had flown in for 3 days of meetings, networking, and deal-making. Among them was Khaled Hassan, a 52-year-old real estate mogul from Dubai with a net worth estimated at over $300 million. Khaled had built his fortune developing luxury properties across the Middle East, and he carried himself with the kind of confidence that comes from never being told no. He wore custom-tailored suits, a Rolex that cost more than most people's cars, and he had the habit of speaking to service workers as if they were invisible. On the second morning of the conference, Khaled returned to his suite around 10 a.m. to retrieve some documents he had forgotten. When he opened the door, he found a housekeeper cleaning his room. Her name was Amira, and she was in her early 40s, wearing the standard hotel uniform, her hair covered with a simple hijab, pushing a cleaning cart and changing the linens on his bed. Khaled was immediately annoyed. He had a meeting in 20 minutes, and he didn't want to wait for her to finish. He stood in the doorway and said loudly, in Arabic, "Get out. I need my room." Amira looked up, startled, and apologized in English, saying she would finish quickly and be out of his way. But Khaled was already irritated and he switched fully into Arabic, assuming this woman, who appeared to be a Muslim immigrant working a minimum-wage hotel job, wouldn't understand him. He said, also in Arabic, "These people are always in the way. They hire the cheapest workers they can find, and we have to deal with incompetent cleaners who can barely speak English. Look at her. Probably sends all her money back to whatever village she came from and lives in a basement somewhere." This is what happens when hotels care more about saving money than quality. He continued complaining as he walked past her to grab his briefcase from the desk, muttering about how the hotel should hire better staff, how people like her were ruining the service industry, how exhausting it was to deal with incompetence everywhere he went. Amira stood completely still during this entire tirade, her hands gripping the bedsheet she had been folding. Her face remained neutral, but her eyes were locked on him. Khaled barely noticed. He was too busy being annoyed, too wrapped up in his own sense of superiority. He grabbed his documents, turned to leave, and that's when Amira spoke. In absolutely flawless, eloquent, formal Arabic, the kind spoken by educated diplomats and scholars, she said, "I understood every single word you just said. And I want you to know that I have a PhD in international relations from Cairo University. I speak 5 languages fluently, and I worked for the Egyptian Ministry of Foreign Affairs for 12 years before immigrating to this country with my family. I clean hotel rooms because I'm rebuilding my life in a new country, and I'm not ashamed of honest work. But you, sir, with all your wealth and expensive clothes, you have no class, no manners, and clearly no idea that respect isn't purchased with money. You should be embarrassed." The room went silent. Khaled froze mid-step, his face going from annoyed to shocked to mortified in about 3 seconds. He opened his mouth to respond, but nothing came out. Amira continued, her voice steady and dignified. She said, "In my years working in diplomacy, I met many wealthy, powerful people. Some of them were kind and humble despite their status. Others, like you, believed their money made them superior to everyone else. The kind people are remembered fondly. People like you are remembered as cautionary tales. I hope one day you realize that every person you meet, regardless of their job or appearance, has a story, has dignity, and deserves basic respect." She picked up her cleaning supplies, looked him directly in the eye, and said, "I'll come back later to finish this room. Please enjoy your conference." And she walked out with her head high, leaving Khaled standing there looking like he'd been slapped. What Khaled didn't know was that another guest, a woman named Jennifer Chun who was staying in the suite next door, had her door slightly open and heard the entire exchange. Jennifer was a tech entrepreneur and she was so stunned by what she witnessed that she immediately wrote about it on Twitter, detailing the whole story. Within hours, the tweet had gone viral. Thousands of people were sharing it, commenting on it, praising Amira's response and condemning Khalid's behavior. News outlets picked it up. The story was covered on morning shows, in think pieces about class and respect, in articles about the immigrant experience. Jennifer's tweet included enough specific details that people quickly figured out it had happened at the Peninsula Hotel, though she never named Khalid directly. But in the interconnected world of international business, word spread quickly about who the executive was. The fallout for Khalid was swift and severe. His company's board of directors called an emergency meeting. Several of his business partners, particularly those in Western markets who were sensitive to public perception, began distancing themselves from him. A major development deal he had been negotiating in London fell through when his British partners cited concerns about his judgment and character. The story became a case study in business ethics classes about the importance of treating everyone with respect. Khalid issued a public apology 2 weeks later, saying he was deeply ashamed of his behavior and that he was committed to learning and growing from this experience. But the damage was done. His reputation had taken a hit that no amount of money could repair. Meanwhile, Amira's life changed in unexpected ways. The Peninsula Hotel, recognizing the grace and dignity she had shown, offered her a position in their guest relations department with a significant pay increase. She declined, explaining that she had already been applying for positions in her actual field, and this incident, while embarrassing, had given her a new sense of confidence. Within 2 months, she was hired by a nonprofit organization focused on refugee resettlement and immigrant services, working as a program coordinator helping other newcomers navigate the challenges she had faced. Her story inspired countless immigrants who were working jobs that didn't match their education or experience, reminding them that their worth wasn't defined by their current circumstances. She gave an interview to NPR where she said something profound. She said, "I never felt shame about cleaning hotel rooms because work is work and all labor has dignity. What I felt in that moment wasn't shame about my job. It was anger that someone would be so cruel to another human being for no reason other than perceived superiority. I wanted him to know that his assumptions were wrong. But more importantly, I wanted him to understand that even if I didn't have a PhD, even if I only spoke one language, even if I had been cleaning rooms my entire life, I still deserved respect." We all do. This story resonates because it touches on something universal. How many times have you dismissed someone based on superficial judgments? How many times have you assumed you knew someone's whole story based on what they were wearing or what job they were doing? We live in a world that constantly tells us that some people matter more than others based on wealth, status, education, or appearance. But that's a lie. Every single person you encounter has lived a full, complex life. The barista making your coffee might be a published poet. The janitor at your office might be a former engineer from another country working to get his credentials recognized. The delivery driver might be saving money to start his own business. You have no idea what someone has been through, what they've accomplished, what dreams they're chasing. And the moment you decide someone is beneath you, the moment you treat them as less than human, you reveal everything about your character and nothing about theirs. There's a concept in psychology called fundamental attribution error. It's the tendency to attribute other people's behavior to their character while attributing our own behavior to circumstances. When we see someone working a low-wage job, we might assume they lack ambition or education. But when we imagine ourselves in a difficult situation, we understand all the complex reasons why someone might end up there. Amira's story forces us to confront that bias. She wasn't just a cleaner. She was never just a cleaner. She was a highly educated professional navigating the incredibly difficult reality of rebuilding a career in a new country, which millions of immigrants face every single day. The United States has an estimated 1.5 million immigrants with college degrees working in jobs that don't require those degrees, according to the Migration Policy Institute. That's 1.5 million people like Amira, with skills and knowledge and experience that often goes unrecognized because of language barriers, credential recognition issues, or simple discrimination. When Khalid looked at Amira, he saw only the uniform and the hijab and made assumptions. He never considered that she might be more educated than him, more cultured than him, more multilingual than him. His wealth had blinded him to the possibility that value and worth aren't measured in bank accounts. The most powerful part of this story is what happened 6 months later. Khalid, who had been notably quiet after his initial apology, did something unexpected. He made a substantial donation to the nonprofit organization where Amira worked, funding a scholarship program for immigrant professionals seeking to re-credential in their fields. He didn't publicize it. Amira only found out when her executive director mentioned a major anonymous donation and later discovered it was from him. She reached out through a mutual contact, and they had a private conversation. According to Amira, Khalid told her that her response had genuinely changed him. He said he had spent his whole life believing that his success made him better than other people, and in one moment, she had shattered that delusion. He said he was grateful, even though it was the most humiliating experience of his life, because it forced him to confront who he had become. Amira told him she appreciated his growth and his willingness to do something meaningful with his regret. Their conversation wasn't about forgiveness or reconciliation. It was about accountability and change. And while Khalid's reputation never fully recovered in certain circles, people who worked with him after that incident noted a marked difference in how he treated everyone around him, regardless of their position. This story should make all of us uncomfortable because most of us have been Khalid at some point, even if not to that extreme. We've made snap judgments. We've been impatient with service workers. We've treated people as inconveniences rather than as human beings. The difference is most of us don't get called out as publicly or as perfectly as Khalid did. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't hold ourselves accountable. The next time you interact with anyone, whether it's a cashier, a cleaner, a delivery person, a receptionist, anyone whose job is to serve you in some capacity, remember Amira. Remember that you have no idea who you're talking to. Remember that kindness costs nothing and cruelty costs everything. Remember that the measure of your character isn't how you treat people who can do something for you, but how you treat people who can do nothing for you. That if this story hit you the way it hit me, I need you to do something. Hit that like button right now. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment telling me about a time you witnessed someone being treated unfairly because of assumptions, or better yet, a time you checked your own privilege and chose kindness. And subscribe to this channel because I'm committed to bringing you stories that challenge you, inspire you, and remind you what it means to be human. Amira didn't need to respond to Khalid's insults. She could have stayed silent, finished her work, and let him remain ignorant. But she chose dignity. She chose to stand up for herself and for every person who has ever been dismissed because of how they look or what they do. She chose to remind a powerful man that respect is earned, not bought. And in doing so, she gave all of us permission to do the same. Thanks for watching.